May 29, 2015 and May 29, 2019 remains historic in the political and democratic calendar of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The day in 2015 ushered in the first term of President Muhammadu Buhari as the civilian president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, while 2019 another electoral successes brought his second term in office as duly elected on the platform of the All Progressives Congress. Election won and lost with a huge challenge of governing the country with its diverse population in the first instance under the change mantra. The expectations expectedly were high given the promises made. The low-hanging fruits in focus among other concerns. In the second instance, it came under the next level agenda where Nigeria is currently at the moment. Altogether, 6 years on the saddle, how has the administration fared in view of the promises and targets set on deliverables? Consolidating the gains of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration is the focus of this special package on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I am Omini Oden. Stay tuned as we shall take you through the sectors with reports across the country and with our team of guest analysts who will see through the lens on how things have been through the years so far, the 6th year of the Buhari's administration in Nigeria. We begin with this icebreaker on the report that says 22 years of democracy in Nigeria, longest stay of democracy in the political history of the country. But does this duration reflect the expected maturity? What are some of the memories? The beautiful and, of course, the sad ones. Mio Gidi takes us on a journey to yesterday and peeps into the future. The report.
That Olusegun Obasanjo, retired of the PDP, having complied with requirements of the law and scored the majority of votes, is hereby declared the winner.
I, Olusegun Obasanjo,
I, Olusegun Obasanjo, that I will preserve,
protect,
and defend
the Constitution
of
the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The return of the Constitution. Warm reception from the political class. Flashes of smiles of freedom on the faces of others. That was in 1999. The past. And this is the present.
Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress is hereby declared winner and is returned elected.
In between the past and the present lies the story of the survival of democracy in Nigeria. These are the caretakers of democracy. 22 years, 8 general elections. Each comes with its own story. Some are stories of how democracy struggled to survive. The death of a sitting president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, in 2010, bringing into the picture the doctrine of necessity, was a major point. The APC taking over power from PDP was landmark.
Pleasure to hand over this also to you.
And of course, major Supreme Court judgments dislodging incumbent governors and supplanting opposition party candidates were really defining moments.
If political parties can put their acts together and follow their constitutions and guidelines, the Electoral Act and the Constitution, which is the baba of them all. You see, I have always believed that democracy will take minimum of 25 years from 1999 before we can really get to something like a level that we can be sure that the future is promising. And let us thank God for the Nigerian judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court of Nigeria. If not for the Supreme Court of Nigeria, this democracy would have been a forgotten thing. It was part of the history.
Victory for democracy. But the plural nature of Nigeria promotes identity politics. Then more deep-rooted is electoral violence. Of course, these put democracy in somewhat reverse gear.
I think at the heart of electoral violence is politicians failing to play by the rules and weaponizing poverty and using violence to get power at all costs. Until politicians don't come to elections as an opportunity for settling inter-elite wars, we're not going to end this. You can deploy technology, but don't forget, the Nigerian politician would explore ways to undermine that technology, and we would end up with computer-generated leaders.
We must try to improve on the practice of democracy in Nigeria, which of course presupposes that we will put in place good governance. And good governance will include justice. It will include inclusiveness. It will include equity, fairness, and all that.
The concept of inconclusive election is a favorite child of democracy lately. A scaring signal or promising one?
Rerun or inconclusive elections are only marks to show that, yes, there were real contests in those elections. So why should we be afraid of real contests?
Since after the 2019 general elections, democracy is demoralized, as it were. INEC, the only midwife and last lifeline of democracy, is under attack from yet-to-be-identified gunmen.
Surely these attacks are no longer freak events, but appear to be quite orchestrated and targeted at INEC. Clearly, these are acts of unjustifiable aggression which may undermine the Commission's capacity to organize elections and dent the nation's electoral process.
To deal with anything that will disrupt what was started in 1999, we are at hand to make sure that the people's will be sustained regardless of whatever happens, regardless of any individual inclinations.
2023 general elections are fast approaching. Electoral Act amendment foot dragging. Democracy waiting to grow faster. And the electorate watches helplessly. But believers of democracy waiting at the end of the tunnel, because definitely there must be a light, since there is a country. Mie Ogede, NT News.
And on the next leg, a new nation conceived in liberty was brought forth when its inhabitants were set free from the hand of military rulers. In this report, Adebola Brooklyn Sunday takes a look at some of the challenges confronting national unity and the way forward.
Across the globe, many countries want to be seen practicing a political arrangement that incorporates the full participation of all its citizens.
88, 89.
For 22 years now, Nigeria has been practicing the system of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Through thick and thin, the people, no doubt, have been benefiting from the gains of the system.
And we shall continue to remain focused in finding solutions to our internal problems, of course, with the support and cooperation of friends of Nigeria.
Despite the giant strides made, the democracy in Nigeria has and still facing some challenges.
The federal government of Nigeria is too heavy.
Osita Okechukwu, a politician and Director General, Voice of Nigeria, told me that even as a nation, there is a need for the federal government to shed some of its responsibilities to the subunits for more development to get to the grassroots.
And we also believe as well that restructure should be go in a dual carriageway. While we are trying to develop more powers to the states and the local council level, that the state governors should unlock democratic institutions in the state level.
For Dr. Steve Ogidan, the strength of a democracy is only as great as the will of the people to uphold it.
Democracy will not serve the purpose if the people just elect leaders and abandon the leaders in position. There's a need for the people to continuously interrogate the leadership. We like to complain on social media. Unfortunately, there is no polling booth on social media.
Others are of the opinion that for democratic governance to thrive anywhere, the people must be vigilant and demand accountability from the leaders.
Human rights is also very key. And a citizen idea that when the right of individuals is being undermined, I think it's also worrisome. It's also a threat to democracy.
If we put the nation's interests first before our individual interests, we'll see things being done for our people, because Nigerians are not asking for too much. They just want road to be made available for them. Their children should be in school. They need water. They need good healthcare system.
So we must make certain legislations, make certain policies that will really affect the lives of the Nigerian people in a positive manner, because it's only when we do that that they can continue supporting the government.
Either as a concept or a system of rule, many agreed democracy has become excessively ambiguous in contemporary political analysis.
There's one very basic area that we have failed to get right, and that is the processes leading to leadership recruitment. We have not gotten it right, my own opinion.
Deliberate infractions of your own ethics.
For the National Broadcasting Commission, fake news and hate speech are some of the tools enemies of democracy are using to fight the system.
According to the provisions of the law, we can comfortably shut them down, because what they are doing is capable of leading to breakdown of law and order. And no country, no responsible country will sit down and allow any form of media to bring down the country.
True democracy, they said, ought to be people-centric by ensuring the participation of the people as well as adherence to their fundamental human rights. Investing in common symbols of national identity and using it to promote civic engagement, dialogue, decentralization, and building inclusive institutions, analysts say, will help the nation sustain and improve on its democratic practice and culture. Adebola, Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
Democracy on the Move, the second wind, is the special package you're watching on NTA Network. And I'm being joined by a team of guests in Abuja and also from Kaduna. Right here with me, I have Susan Henshaw, attorney, social political advocate. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Professor Kabiru Matu is joining us from our Kaduna Network Center. He's a political scientist. Good to see you on the program.
Much and good morning.
What is your first take assessing democracy, the journey so far, without necessarily looking deep into the last 6 years? But let's just give it a quick scroll following the report you have heard.
Well, thank you very much. I think one of the most important things that we need to remind ourselves of every time we're talking about democracy and its evolution is that democracy is an attitude. Democracy is a way of life. It's a means to an end and not an end itself. I will say that the last 22 years that we have had under civil democratic dispensation, also under the civilian administration, and precisely the last 6 years of the Buhari administration define the character and the context of what democracy or civil rule is all about. It's about an attempt to reconcile the various interests of the various groups that comprise of the nation that is called Nigeria. And what we see happening now, and despite the attempts of government at various levels to try to address these very obvious physical, social, economic, as well as psychological challenges of the nation, only define in theoretical and even in practical terms, the concept of what is commonly referred to as the national question. And of course, the essence of any government, be it democratic or otherwise, is to be able to attempt to, provide answers to these, obvious national questions that will continue to be addressed. And as you address some of them, brand new ones also continue to emerge. There will never be a time when a society, especially that is, comprised of different individuals, such as the Nigerian nation, will be able to arrive at, what you refer to as a political, social, or even economic consensus of saying that we have been able to address virtually and basically every national issue that we have. So I think it's a project underway. It's what you call work in progress, and I think that in my humble assessment of the situation, that the Nigerian situation has reached a level of what you will call gargantuan proportion, and therefore addressing it will continue to pose a very serious local and national crisis. But the way out of it is, in my view, sustained action by principled and well-focused, administrations, both at the state and the federal level, to continue to attend to these issues. But I'm not expecting that anytime soon, we'll wake up and Nigerians will say, yes, it's here, we have arrived. We will be going, and we'll be making progress. And of course, and that's why sometimes it's very, very critical for you, to have leadership that is focused, determined, and not reliant on the flimsies of information, whether from the social or conventional media, on the criteria and steps that is being taken in order to be able to arrive at the national, solution to the problem. So I am saying, in essence, that in the last 22 years, or in the last 6 years specifically, that Nigeria has made tremendous progress, despite the obvious challenges that we are facing in the area of security, of course, which again is a character and future that you often find in evolving democracies such as the Nigerian nation. Also, the insecurity in this area of the agitations that you see from the various parts of the country, which again, as a student of political science and professor of comparative politics, I should be able to see merely manifestation of the political cleavages and expectations and desires that you have, from a multi-ethnic, multi-religious societies such as Nigeria. I think the road to democracy will be severely hampered, or any attempt by whatever ruling class you have in place to be able to, lead the nation out of the woods will only be successful to the extent that, there is what you call national consensus. National consensus here, not necessarily defined by the rhetorics and noises that elites like me and you, will continue to make in our, struggle for access to state power and resources. So I'm saying the support of the Nigerian people and the understanding is very crucial, in the attainment of, national self-actualization. And I think we are moving on the right direction, and we should continue to do more, continue to agitate as a way of perhaps asking questions to those who represent us at the various levels of governance.
Thank you so much, Professor Kabiru Matu. He joined us from Kaduna, and just joining us is Professor Nu Yakub, former Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja. I also used to call him a professional teacher. Good to have you on the program.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, Susan, listening to Matu give analytics on that, one would say when we hear crises, we hear mild dramas, it is encapsulated as the beauty of democracy. Is there really beauty in democracy?
Oh, there's absolutely beauty in democracy. I always say, there's not just beauty in democracy, there's just phenomenal beauty in our diversity. Sadly, diversity is probably responsible for a whole lot of the problems we're seeing right now, transient as they may be, and I don't care what anybody says, they are transient, The problems that have arisen that if we actually sit to look at them, they're resolvable. And if we remove the politics, then I can absolutely say they're absolutely resolvable, and they would be. Now, the beauty of democracy, especially in Nigeria, let's understand that democracy is still evolving. We're a relatively young country, you know, at 60, you know, compared to, say, other, you know, countries, especially in the Western world.
Well, 60 is not 60 days.
No, 60 years. 60 years is a lot of years.
Yeah.
But speaking in terms of a democracy, you know, and comparatively with civilizations that have been there for centuries and democracies that have grown, you know, hundreds of years, you know, prior to us, you know, you can't really say that 60 years is anything, you know. But having said that, let me say a little bit more about why I'm a very optimistic person, especially regarding Nigeria. First of all, for us to have even gotten here, if you really look back, you'll find out that along with other things that have, you know, this country has been through in its years since independence, through political growth and all that, we've always had problems. Along with those problems, I mean, part of the reason for that, which is something that we don't look at specifically. You know, we have a tendency to lump everything and to catastrophize. But if we had to sit down and look at our growth, you know, our democratic growth, you know, we'll find out that if we broke, or should I say compartmentalize, you know, our problems, our successes, and so on, you know, and look at them, we'll find out that we're beating on ourselves way too hard, you know. I know most of it is politics, you know, most of it is the politics of it, you know. I always like to use the phrase, they've drummed up the rhetoric to a crescendo, you know, and generally speaking, anything that goes up would come down. And I personally believe that as we go through the next political cycle and, you know, get the results of those and who's going to be the next president or whatever's going on at that time, all of this would come down, right. You know. So yeah, I look really positively about our, you know, our development as far as our democracy. Absolutely stand by what I say regarding that. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Prof, it's an evolving process. Even nations that have hit beyond 60, still evolving. They may have been ahead of Nigeria. But let's calm down. When it all started, it was as if it won't happen. 22 years onwards. May 29, 2015. May 29, 2019. It took off, and this administration started with the change mantra on 3 major planks, and now next level agenda, still sustaining. Would you say so far within the last 6 years, Nigeria is nosediving into having a clearer picture towards a clear-cut democratic culture in terms of the deliverables by the current administration?
I will not say no. I will not say yes. I will not say yes because, you know, the government before it came into being actually set for itself an agenda. You know, and I'm happy that you made reference to the 3-point agenda: economy, corruption, security. And if you use whatever yardstick you want to use, I would think that the government has actually failed, you know, woefully. I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not a skeptic as such, but I'm an empiricist. I want to say what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. Security-wise, we are worse than we were in 2015, and nobody can dispute this. Okay. I am just from Organi, about 2.5 hours drive from here. I cannot go home because I can't guarantee my safety on the road. I wish there would be an airport to fly from Abuja to to cover just 2.5 hour, journey time. And it is the same thing all over the country. Assuming it is just even concentrated in a particular area, you will say, well, it is a manageable phenomenon. It is not. We are talking of security problem that has engulfed the entire country. How do we get out of this? I made a statement on Good Morning Nigeria a few weeks ago about the kind of expectation we expect from the Commander-in-Chief. There was this kidnapping of 2 children in Kankara, in Katsina State, and he was in Daura. As I said then, as the Commander-in-Chief, I expected that he would call all his chiefs of military formation and say, no, this is unacceptable. Not even when it is happening in my, but particularly when it's happening in my backyard. And you mobilize everybody. Even that inspirational leadership display will have gone very far in terms of even affecting the psychology of those who are bent on, creating security challenges for this country. So I'm really worried when you take that aspect of the agenda of the government, because the government actually defined for itself what was perceived before 2015 as a major problem that Nigerians will have to be rid of. I mean, that a major problem has to be solved for Nigerians. But within a period of 6 years, we are now talking about the worsening situation of security in this country. So I will mark down the government as having performed very woefully in that regard, and I have no qualms about saying this.
Okay, it's an evolving process. It is still heading on, no destination. Let's veer off from the concept of looking at developmental strides so far within the last 6 years. After 4 years of construction, the Lagos-Ibadan Railway will be commissioned soon, but the gains here is that there are array of potentials waiting to be tapped, as the rail line will not only give options to commuters but facilitate movement of cargo from the seaports in Apapa. In this report, Michael Olaleye examines the Lagos-Ibadan rail line and efforts to ease the gridlock in Apapa.
A typical day-to-day scenario along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, a frustrating experience that inspired the federal government's multi-modal approach of transportation due to the intensity of trade and population along the corridor. The 156 kilometers Lagos-Ibadan rail line project was birthed as a way of reducing tension on the road. Since conceived in 2017, construction work has been rapid, and today, the project is due for commissioning by President Muhammadu Buhari.
We are not 100% ready for commissioning, but if we are not around commissioning this, we are between 89 to 90% ready for commissioning. We hope that in the next 2-3 weeks, we will be completely ready for commissioning, by which time we will have gotten a date from the President.
With this present state, the new wind breezing along the corridor is no longer that of hope, but actuality.
Meaningful development already starting with real estate businesses, telecom businesses bringing mass. You see outdoor advertising, everything coming around the corridor because of new life is being open to Lagosian and reducing the gap between Lagos and Ibadan.
You get tired, you get exhausted, you are worrying about a lot about things. But if you now consider that, you can use the train, there are a lot of things. One, you can actually work while on board the train. Then another thing is that it gets cars off the road. It will get cars off the road. So when cars are off the road, we would have less pollution.
The spectrum of ready-made opportunities available along the axis was further boosted when the length of the track was extended by 8.7 kilometers to unlock the ever-busy Apapa trade corridor. Already, experts are emphasizing the prospects of experiencing timely delivery and evacuation of cargoes.
Somebody in Kaduna, in Port Harcourt, can actually easily move his goods, and it's cheaper. it's part of, how to make the economy strong and vibrant.
Apapa, although Nigeria's busiest trade corridor, is plagued with gridlock caused by a huge volume of trucks that commute the axis every day, with yard occupancy almost getting to the peak. This explains why a report published by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry indicates that the country loses 6.7 trillion naira to congestion annually.
We have seen rail evacuating cargo now. Very soon, you will see three modes of operation: the barge operation, the rail, and of course the road mode. This is how a port should be served in every very important port. We need to have multimodal approach to that. Reliance on one mode of evacuation or delivery is disastrous.
The saving grace here is that with the rehabilitation of Section 1, 3, and 4 along the Apapa-Oshodi-Oworonshoki Expressway to reinforced concrete pavements gotten to 75%, the evacuation of cargoes is gradually easing.
It's total for us, and everything is smoothly. We are going smoothly, no problem on the road.
The total length of this Section 4 is about 10.5 kilometers. The travel time also has increased. Before, if you are coming from Apapa and you are going to Ojota, you spend nothing less than 4 hours. But now, you spend less than 15 minutes before you get to Ojota because of the completed section that we have done. It has been opened, and then the commuters, they are happy using it.
The federal government's intervention in Lagos is not just channeled around ease of doing business, but reducing the cost by 30% with a view of increasing source of livelihood. In Lagos, Michael Lale, NT News.
And on the flip side, with the vestiges of insecurity leaving most parts of the country, the Northeast, especially Borno State, has paved way for the voluntary relocation of some internally displaced persons to their ancestral homes to continue their livelihoods devoid of any threats. As a result of this development, many post-insurgency recovery programs are in motion with the support of the federal ministries, agencies, and the Northeast Development Commission. As government focuses more on social security for return of normalcy to achieve sustainable socio-economic progress, Memuna Garba brings us up to speed.
The Northeast Nigeria has continued to enjoy significant peace with socio-economic activities thriving in many areas owing to the gallantry of the military in rendering communities safe for habitation. Efforts by the military with support of civilian JTF and hunters led to declaring of Baga town and adjoining communities as well as other areas hitherto under the control of Boko Haram terrorists safe for returnees by the military. A lot of initiatives were injected into the counter-insurgency war by the military, which helped in stabilizing the region and curbed the waves of attacks by terrorists.
The situation is not as bad as what it used to be. Counter-terrorism is a work in progress. It's not an end state itself. The end state is peace. So we will keep working at it, and in due course, every space, every inch of land, including the Tumbus, will be controlled by civil authority.
Sustained synergy between the Army and the Air Task Force, as well as the NSCDC's Agro Rangers initiative and Borno State government, made it possible for farmers to return to their farmlands in Borno.
We want to introduce technology into our operation by the use of drones so that we can monitor what is going on inside farmlands.
Borno State government, in its quest to help restore lasting peace, also introduced the Rapid Response Squad to fundamentally complement efforts of the military in securing highways, especially reopened routes hitherto closed due to activities of the terrorists.
The general security situation in the state for now is calm. We are going to have a serious collaboration and synergy with all the relevant stakeholders.
In the area of social security, the federal government, through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development, has continued to provide food and non-food items to sustain victims of insurgency and returnees to liberated communities. The ministry and the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons have scaled up skills acquisition, vocational training and provision of empowerment items as part of livelihood support to people of states in the Northeast, especially those affected by the conflict.
We're trying to empower the youth to harness their energy towards productive means instead of violent extremism.
And Yagum Subuka reports that since the establishment of the Northeast Development Commission by the President Buhari-led administration, it has recorded tremendous achievements in the area of humanitarian intervention in communities affected by activities of the insurgents in the region as part of federal government's post-insurgency recovery program. Having noted the major challenge being faced in the region, which is security, the NEDC provided 120 operational vehicles to the police, army, paramilitary, as well as ambulances and other medical equipment to help effort towards bringing about peace and stability to the Northeast. The NEDC has engaged in simultaneous distribution of food and non-food items across the 6 northeastern states. In the area of infrastructural development, the Commission's Special Intervention and Rapid Response Initiatives are supporting fast-track resettlement of IDPs with rebuilding of devastated communities and new housing programs, in addition to health sector responses through the building and equipping of one of the best COVID-19 testing laboratory in Bauchi State to meet the needs of the people.
Today we have almost 900 already completed. That shows that effort has been made and we're very good progress. And this complex or the housing essay will be completed very soon so that the beneficiaries, the IDPs, can move in as quickly as possible.
In a multi-sectoral provision of infrastructure, 2 projects will be implemented in each of the 112 local government areas in the Northeast with a budget of 50 million naira per local council, amounting to a total cost of 6 billion naira. Concerned by high rate of idleness occasioned as a result of insurgency, the NEDC is also establishing ICT resource centers in each of the 6 states designed to train and empower youths of the region on ICT application. In Maiduguri, Maimuna Garba, NTA News.
Well, at the opening, we looked at democracy, and from Kaduna, where Professor Matu joined us from, he said it should be an attitude, a way of life, and work in progress. The positives, the minuses, and back here, Professor New Yakub said it all and said there are a lot of issues around security. But moving on, infrastructure, one of the reports that looked at rail infrastructure. Suzanne has talked about the beauty of democracy. Now let's look at rail infrastructure. To cap up, 156 kilometers Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail nearing completion, 327 kilometers Itakpe-Warri standard gauge rail completed and commissioned 33 years after construction began. Abuja Light Rail completed in 2018. Groundbreaking done for construction of Kano Maradi standard gauge rail and revamp of Port Harcourt Maiduguri narrow gauge. Financing negotiations ongoing for Ibadan Kano standard gauge. So rail infrastructure within the last 6 years.
You just reeled it out.
I just got an update.
You reeled it right out. You know, now let's back up a little bit. Before this government came into power, who wants to analyze what the rail system was like? Nobody. I can bet you not even the people who were in governance at the time would be able to stand up and tell Nigerians this is what happened in rail when we were there for 16 odd years, you know? So moving forward now, as you've reeled out, let me just say the government has, and this is incontrovertible. You know, the good thing about facts is that you can't argue them away, you know? The rail lines are there or they're not there. And in this case, we know they're there. You know, and from the rail projects that are going on right now, we can tell that any rail projects that are breaking ground right now are going to happen. You know, because you can always tell what's going to happen from what has already happened. Now, let me say this regarding this government's policies and project in infrastructure. You cannot fault those. I mean, this government has a lot of things we can fault. Infrastructure, comparatively, you know, comparable with, you know, the last, administration and moving back. We have to give credit where credit is due. There's one of the things that I think we're not doing well at this time, is that we're lumping everything together and everything is bad. Now, like I said, most of that, a substantial amount of that is political, you know, but in terms of infrastructure, we can't argue that away. It's not like security, that it's not, you know, it's something that you can point to and say, this is what is happening in rail. Now, one of the things that impressed me the most, one of those days I looked in the papers, or was it on TV, I don't remember, and I saw that some pipes for construction, I want to guess it was for the gas pipelines being laid, you know, from Ajakuta all the way to Kaduna, Kaduna and then to Kano, I think it is, were being transported by rail. I mean, literally, that made me kind of emotional, you know, to see that this is really happening. You know, we can argue all we want, but substantive strides in rail infrastructure, no argument there. No argument there. You know, it's impressive, you know. Now, you know, somebody said to me the other day, look, I don't even see anything. Most of what you're doing here is groundbreaking. And I said, it starts from somewhere. If you look at what's already on ground, you know what's coming. We have to give this government kudos for what it has done. You know, the presidential initiatives that have gone into infrastructure, the monies that have been put in there. I mean, we're coming from a time when we heard so much about projects, about rail, about this, about that, about dredging ports. That never happened, you know, never happened. And now that they're happening, I don't think it's right to sit back and let somebody just dismiss all of the efforts and all of the, you know, finances that have been dumped into infrastructure. Dismiss that with a wave of the hand. You know, that's not being. That's, as far as I'm concerned, hating, for lack of a better word. Okay. Yeah. So
let me proceed to Prof.
Yeah.
Before we go to Kaduna, of particular note, because of it's your constituency, 327 kilometers Itakpe-Warri standard gauge rail completed and commissioned 33 years after construction began. Is that not an achievement?
No, of course it will be an achievement, but let us put it in context.
And also, just as an addendum, when we looked at the KKK project, and then Governor of Nasarawa State gave a prospect of what it would look like if it is completed on that route where the gas pipeline will go. The development he painted, it was quite juicy. So,
yeah, especially in respect to the Warri-Itape and the rail line, I thought that the conceptualization of the project was supposed to go in tandem with the development of the steel industry. So we should not lose sight of this. I am actually worried that, you can actually, we are having some remarkable progress in rail development, not just, the rail line between Warri and Itape, but, the ones, going, from Lagos to Ibadan is in prospect. There's also the line going from, that will go from Kaduna to Kano, and so on and so forth. And then the renovation of the narrow gauge, track, between Port Harcourt and Maiduguri. All these ones are going on. But I really, want to emphasize the point that as these are going on, one of the things that can also ensure the sustainability of the rail line is the fact that, the iron and steel industry is very critical to industrialization of this country. Government should also pay much attention to it and ensure that these tracks we are laying, should anything happen, I think largely rail line is about steel development. And we have a steel industry that has, is left comatose. For as long as the period of the development of the rail between Warri and Ilepe. So I think that, yes, government has done very well, in terms of ensuring that the rail transportation system in this country is enhanced. But I'm also thinking that, let us be able to synergize and see what is it that, will help, promote this development in the rail
What
sector.
if, as the government came, they abandoned it for other things?
Yeah, it makes, there's nothing, it's counter-logical, to argue like that, because development is a seamless process. You get the point I'm making? And this is also what worries me. If you abandon education, it's going to have, multiply effect on other social sectors. Health, for instance, agriculture, for instance, and so on and so forth. I am saying, therefore, that yes, as much as we have, the government has deemed it very necessary and wise to concentrate attention on rail development, it is also important and wise that there are other segments of this rail development that we also have to be taken into consideration. And steel is very important, because the track itself is made by, what provides the rail tracks, is the steel. Okay. Why don't you also, put attention into this? But my major worry again, which is very sad, this is not on the government side now, is the fact that Nigerians are already dismantling the tracks. When I saw it on in the news the other day, I just, shed tears for this country.
Well, the good news is that the security agencies are beginning to apprehend and arrest.
Yeah, I couldn't just imagine how a Nigerian will get up and say, let me go and disrupt this very important transportation system, which is going to lead, if there should be rail line disaster, you can just, because the rail is actually carrying not only goods, but, so many people. How many lives are we going to lose?
Okay, Prof, let's leave it there. Let's quickly go to Kaduna, Professor Mato. Professor Mato, well, let's veer a bit off rail infrastructure and look at security. The strides recorded so far towards ensuring that these displaced persons return to their ancestral homes, and listening to the Chief of Defense Staff, Irabor, talk about that security, as it were, as much as Prof raised a lot of concerns in his opening thoughts on security, he said clearly it is not as bad as it was today. How do you link up?
Let me use this opportunity to welcome my Vice Chancellor, my teacher, Professor Yakub, to the program. But you see, the Nigerian situation could appropriately be placed in two perspectives. It's based on the theory of whether it is half full or it is half empty. And I want to think that as academicians, we always like to look at it as half empty, as strategy of making those impositions of public policy to beep off their efforts so that the society can attain what's commonly referred to as the common good. The insecurity situation in Nigeria, as aptly captured by the Chief of Defense Staff, really defines the reality of the situation as it is today. What we see today happening across the 36 states and the federal capital actually is not what can easily be traced to the emergence of this government in 2015. It's a build-up, the crisis in Chad, the crisis in Libya, and several other African countries that led to the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, etc., etc. And then, of course, the growing agitations on the part of several Nigerians, especially as occasioned by the profile of a new system of governance, which is, democracy, also very important factors, to the surging state of insecurity in the country. But I would like to say, without any fear of contradiction, that the armed forces, in my view, are apparently, up and doing, and hopefully these matters, in no way we expect that you'll wake up, you sleep in the night and wake up in the morning and find that, they are resolved. After all, insurgencies, guerrilla warfare, as we see happening, or the spread of banditry and other criminalities across not just northern Nigeria. In those days, we used to hear of abduction only in the Niger Delta area where you have, oil workers, but now it's, across the country. But I'm saying, in essence, that the effort that is being put by government in order to rehabilitate a lot of these citizens that have been displaced is very commendable. But beyond it, I think the most important thing that needs to be done is to launch a very massive public education in order to be able to win the hearts and minds of several Nigerians, because the insurgents are obviously known by members of the community. The other time, that the insurgents or the Boko Haram elements overran Gaidam and other things like that, I listened to the, army spokesman saying that the tragedy is that these insurgents are not identified, because once they move into the community, they sort of mix up with the members of the community. So it's not possible for the security agencies to be able, to identify who are the insurgents and who are the law-abiding citizens. So what this means, therefore, is that there seems to be, an unfortunate collusion or connivance between a substantial portion of the citizenry and people who are involved in these criminal activities. And even the banditry that you have in forms of kidnapping, etc., in substantial part of northwestern Nigeria, you will find that a lot of members of the community actually know who these insurgents are, but are unwilling to cooperate with the security agencies and other in order to be able to report this, so that this matter is addressable. So, as I said in the beginning, it's impossible for government to be able to achieve any meaningful development in the resolution of obvious national crisis unless, of course, there is a full support of the citizenry. And the citizenry here, not necessarily representing me or you, the elites, but also, those that you fondly call the common people. So I think we must, put these things in contextualization. And that is to say that yes, it's not been easy. Yes, it's not been difficult. You take the security scenario from 2015, you see that it's, I get it. But what is very visible is that you can see the willingness and the open, mindedness on the part of government in order to be able to address this issue. So what's left now is for the citizens or for the government to properly engage the citizens into understanding the critical role that we all have to play in order to address this obvious national malaise. But like I said in the beginning, democracy is an attitude, democracy is a process, it's not an end, it's a means to an end. And unless, of course, that all of us are agreeable to that fact, yes, we can, it's a matter of methodology. How do you fix a problem? You want to go to Ibadan and somebody says, from Abuja I'm going through Lokoja, and somebody will tell you, no, let me go through Bida, etc., etc. But the bottom line is that your objective is to arrive at Ibadan. So Nigerians must realize the fact that, it's a matter of method. You have different governments, you have different individuals that constitute state, both at state and federal levels. But the fact of the matter is that we all desire to, arrive at a particular destination, and that is the destination of peace, unity, progress, the destination of, a better Nigeria. And I think we're on the way, getting there. We can only get there with sustained efforts of both, government at various levels, and secondly, of course, the willingness on the part of citizenry, especially the elite class that I and you represent, to appreciate the fact that in the struggle for power, it's not about division, it's not about destruction, it's about consensus building. I will disagree with you, disagree with me, but the fact of the matter is that we are better off when the scenario or when the situation, is improved. So I think governments in the Northeast, the federal government and several other, governments where you have this crisis rearing its ugly head, actually are doing as much as they should, but we'll also encourage them to do more so that at the end of the day, at least Nigerians will be able to go back to sleep with their two eyes closed.
Professor Kabiru Batu, Prof, to you, listening to Prof, it therefore means, besides the fact that government and the security architecture is doing its very best to surmount, you have expressed your concerns, which is one of the major planks of this administration, but the citizens also have a responsibility. Mm-hmm. Like I said in one of our programs, that if you throw a bomb at a marketplace, that bomb will attack everybody. It will not know where you come from,
that's right,
which religion you belong to. So what role should Nigerians play towards security in Nigeria?
Well, I mean, security is everybody's business. And that's, I mean, I subscribe to that theory or saying. So you can't actually leave everything in the hands of government, but the government also has to take the initiative in terms of addressing key security issues. Now, when we talk about the role of the citizens in security management, what I will expect is also that, what is the extent to which government has also set up a machinery for information gathering. And this information gathering will actually be, from the people. What is it? What is the relationship between, the intelligence unit of the government apparatuses and the relationship they have with the people from whom they will have to get, certain pieces of information. And we are talking about the fact that, somebody, I think that's what, Professor Kabir Batu was saying just now. Now, the problem of security management is that, when people, insurgents go into a particular community, they integrate very easily. It is very probable that, either some people out of the community went into the into recruitment, and they are now also sent back to the community to go and carry out the mayhem or havoc that we normally witness. What therefore this means is that the government, the government should actually have a system whereby it is possible to get people who will identify the insiders that are now the ones carrying out banditry, kidnapping and what have you. If we do not have such machinery of gathering information, I guess that the role the citizens will perform will be circumscribed. Okay. Yeah, that is my take. Otherwise, I quite agree in total that security is the business of everybody. Okay. In a democracy.
Let's get Susan's perspective.
I was just waiting to jump in. Now, let me just say this, just for purposes of clarity. There has not been a single incident of that has been majorly or widely publicized in this country, let's say in the recent past, that the security forces have not arrested the perpetrators. Let's just make that very clear. So when we say security is so bad, it's so bad, there's a lot of shout about that, because it is indeed. But let us also recognize that for the sake of the citizens and how they feel and how they, their own security, that we make it, and the press has a responsibility here too. We make it known when these people are apprehended, and when they're arrested, and the press adequately reports all of that. So, like I said, there's not been any single, incident, including the eruptions in the southeast, where law enforcement officers have been killed and their stations being burned down. So far, and I've been following this very closely, there has not been a single instant where these people have not been apprehended. You know, the what do you call them, the ringleaders of this mayhem are being taken into custody. And I'm sure they'll face the law, and rightfully so. Now, this is regarding, let's say, the whole separatist movement and agitation. Now, let's go to the Northeast. Who can even argue? And usually I just say that with all the noise going on all over the place, the only people I listen to are the military guys on ground and the governor. And the citizens, of course, in Borno State. They're ground zero. So if they're not saying, we're over here on this side of the world, this side of the country, crying more than the bereaved. Insecurity in Borno, this country is falling apart, oh, the sky is falling down, oh, the country is going to break up. No, it's not. I'm sorry to disappoint any persons out there who kind of hope or wish surreptitiously that it does. It's not. The country is not going anywhere on, based on the security situation. And that's the reality. Now, what's going on in Borno, as we understand, just to segue a little bit, I saw the Attorney Falana on TV one day saying, don't listen to what they're telling you. We're not winning. The security, the army is not winning in Borno. And I thought that was extremely reckless. And recklessness is it's a step up irresponsible, So I was just saying that there is no incursion the insurgents have made in Borno that has not been pushed back. There is not a single instant. When they were over in Niger State and the governor complained about it, they shut them down. It was shut down. So let's give, if not for ourselves, at least for our military men and their, and their morale, let's give them the due respect. Let's keep it based on reality. Let's keep it based on the facts, instead of the noise and the rhetoric. And that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to say quickly also is that on this issue of citizens also being responsible, a major part of it is the press. I can tell you without equivocation that if the Nigerian press all decided to report just what's factual, nobody would be feeling that the sky is falling as far as insecurity.
Are you making reference to both social media and the conventional media?
Yes, indeed. Press publication, the social media, and you too, sir, if we kept it, and you do, so I have to give you credit for that. You do in this station. If we just kept it factual, and sometimes I read the papers and I see 2 people were kidnapped in Borno, 1 person was kidnapped in Enugu, and all of this just, accumulating things that under normal circumstances really shouldn't be in the newspapers. Because these things happen regardless of the security situation in any country. Let's take the United States fairly recently, for example. In the past week, the US had 17 mass shootings. And when we say mass shootings, you can go everywhere from 5 persons to, 100. The USA has had 17 in 1 week. 1 week. And nobody has said, oh, the government has failed, or the sky is falling down, or this country is going to erupt. And that's a country that has, decades and decades of, of progress in security providing and all the technology in the world and everything. But still, people are able to perpetuate these crimes, like the recent one in California, where 8 people in one workplace were just gunned down in one morning, early hours of the morning. So let us see our situation. Let's just deal with the facts, as they unfold. Let's deal with the reality of our situation, our insecurity. Let's deal with that. Yeah.
Let's go to Professor Matu. Professor Matu, before we take other reports, quickly, the worry is it about expectation? When promises are made and the people expect, is it that the approach to expectation by Nigerians appears a bit on the fast lane than the process towards actualizing the promises? Expectations tied to promises. Because when you go to the books, you see a lot happening. But when you listen off the books, it's as if nothing is happening. So Promises and expectations, how best can it be managed?
That is, one of the fundamental issues that I think is facing us as citizens, and I'm not surprised, because if you take the history of governance and administration in this country over the last many years, you will see, a lot of disappointed expectations on the part of the citizenry, and so this apprehension has continued to, rear its ugly heads in our minds, and we therefore find it very difficult to, perhaps believe, in whatever those who are representing us at the various level of political strata, are doing. So I want to also think that this thing that seems to be inherent in our minds as Nigerians, in our blood, running down the, our blood veins as citizens of this country, that we are extremely, apprehensive of whatever, that is being done. But I think, like I said, that's why the issue of attitude readily comes to play. The fact of the matter is that we have to, as a people, agree with the fact that it takes time and processes to be able to move from point A to point B. Like I said earlier, we are coming from, a situation where a lot of us were hopeless, a lot of us, saw things happening the way that they were not supposed to happen. And so even when a reasonably sensible state is established or is in place, this apprehension seems to, take a substantial part of us, and therefore reducing the capacity of government to be able to address, our individual and collective problems. And unless, of course, we are in the right atmosphere of attuning our minds to the fact that we all have roles to play, very critical roles for that matter. We are our individual, self-governments, contributing as individuals, as communities, as members of the society in addressing the various, social issues that are afflicting us, and also giving our own due contribution in order to perhaps assist whatever level of, government to be able to solve, some of these problems. I think we'll continue to run round and round, and obviously that will continue to compound problem. And especially the Nigerian crisis now is typified by one very unfortunate scenario, that we're not interested in having leaders that will have the capacity to propel us out of the woods. Most of us are only interested in having leaders that are coming from our regions, that are coming from our tribes, that are coming from our religions, So in the process, therefore, we substantially lose the essence, of what national development, is all about. And unless, of course, we devoid our minds of the fact that it doesn't matter where a leader is coming from, it doesn't matter what church or mosque he attends or she attends, but that our goal should be providing the necessary support and assistance, and of course giving the necessary criticisms where necessary, for governments to be able to achieve, to take us to the next level of administration. And so attitude. If I have my way, one of the things that needs to be done in this country is not to, spend substantial money in the area of, doing a lot of infrastructure or so on and so forth, but how do we rebuild the, mind infrastructure of the individual citizens so that we can, as the scriptures rightly put it, be our brother's keepers? What I like for myself is what also I like for my brother or for my sister. And unless, we have this right tune of attitude, then of course we will continue to run round, and no matter the level of seriousness of government, it's unlikely, that we will be able to achieve, what we need to achieve. But like I said, it's very, very crucial that Nigerians must agree to one fundamental fact, and that fact is that we are after a leadership that will have the capacity, or that has the capacity to move out of the woods that we find ourselves into the next level, regardless of where these leaders are coming from. So even the leadership recruitment process, and then the attitude of the citizenship, the citizenry and followership, are also very central, to the attainment of the objectives of state and the objectives of the nation as a whole.
Thank you so much, Professor Kabiru. Professor Nu, The other aspect of it is, in the last 6 years, what is your assessment in terms of checks and balances, the three arms of government? We have had cases where, at some point in the democratic life of Nigeria, it looked as though some arms were usurped or swallowed by the executive. But in the last 6 years, saying 2015, 2019 to date, what is your assessment in terms of the dialectics of checks and balances, the arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary?
Well, I don't think fundamentally it has changed from what we have inherited since 1999. It has not changed. Why? Because we're operating a constitutional system, and the Constitution specifies what roles various arms of government will have to perform.
What in terms of the flow? For instance, the executive transmits a bill to the legislature.
Yeah.
We have had cases where before these bills are thrown out. But lately we see that most of the legislatures, executive orders go through and they look at it from the strengths and merits of it, not from the parochial angle of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is, I think this is the 9th
yes.
assembly.
Yes.
Good. And then the leadership actually said it from the beginning that they are prepared to cooperate with the executive. The the 9th assembly, made it. It's like it swore, to cooperate with the executive arm of government, and it has done it, fairly, accurately as promised. I don't think there's any problem with that. There must be, synergy between, the various branches of government. And particularly if the executive branch is doing what it's doing constitutionally. And as I want to look at the question you have asked, I would look at it from the point of view, if there is any conflict, it comes from the fact that the executive has been given so much preponderant power that it has the capacity to muzzle the other branches. And why the agitation, this explains why there is agitation for restructuring. And I personally support that we should look at the way this democratic process we are talking about was practiced during the First Republic. It's not just a question of, we move from parliamentary system of government to, a presidential system of government. But the issue should be that this is a federation. If we define it as a federal setup, then we have to ensure that the subordinate levels of government or the other branches, either within, between the branches or the relationship between, the federal, the state, as well as between the state and the local government. Let us ensure that all various organs, levels of government are able to perform what they are supposed to do constitutionally. And if that is being done, I don't think the kind of agitation we're having all over the country, will materialize. But there is always the possibility that particularly the executive branch will want to interfere or impose itself on the other branches. But the people who are agitating for restructuring, they have also failed to understand that the problem we're having is that of the Constitution, not in the individual. The Constitution has given not less than 66 legislative powers to the executive. And the states are left with, very, minute or menial, issues to handle. I believe that, if there is, the review of the Constitution is going on at the moment. I want to commend it, but I have my fears. How many times have we gone through revising this Constitution? When you want to formally announce the Constitution, we are praying, we say the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. So we have amended this Constitution. Why is it for several times that we have done it, we have not actually hit on the main issue, which is that, the legislative powers, is what everybody should actually be concerned with. Okay. Can we reduce the number of responsibilities given to the federal government such that the states can also have room to breathe, or even the local government can also have rooms to operate? This is what is going to what we have been avoiding, and I can bet you that, in fact, and that's why I'm not too keen about what is going on in terms of constitutional review that is going on currently. I'm not keen because I have seen... Are you saying
it's an effort in futility?
Yeah, I mean, we have done it before. Why is it not possible for us to actually address the issue, and we leave it until it creates certain it becomes unmanageable? Then people will begin to say, oh, the federal government is muscling the state governments are muscling the local government, and so on and so forth, and then we have to go on.
But on and Sinker, you agree with me that there has been some kind of synergy?
No, that's I said it. I said the Ninth Assembly actually promised, and they are very faithful to their promise. There's no problem about that.
Susan, you are an attorney, and I know naturally when you listen to opposition, which is natural in democracy, any democratic governance does not tolerate opposition, then it's as good as not a democracy. Right. But some persons expect that there should always be sustained fisticuff between the executive and the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. And where this does not exist, the picture is painted that the other arms have been swallowed by the executive.
Well, yeah, I was just listening to Prof. and, and nodding my head here because, as far as the issue of the executive and the legislature having synergy, that's actually a good thing. Because without that, the governance
will be... Does that mean defeatist?
No, but here's the thing. Let's not confuse, the issue of synergy with usurpation, because those are two separate and distinct things. Now, we have to give it to the Ninth Assembly that when occasion has arisen, they have stood their own. Now, the fact that they have not been unreasonably, combative with the president or with the executive does not take away anything from them. They've tried to do it right. Let's give that to them. Now, another thing, I was kind of thinking about is that this government, the executive powers, let's even say the president, because every president has his style of governance. And the one thing that I have seen is that the President Buhari has talked to the right thing. He has not, bowed to the whims and caprices and the noise and the rhetoric of how people think it should be done, how people think he should do it. He has talked to, just as a man of principle. It reminds me of my father a lot. He has talked to what he thinks is right. He's not infallible. And in doing things sometimes, maybe he has erred, or maybe he has, not been perfect, as no human being is. But he has brought such dignity to the office that he has talked to what he has come to do, and he has allowed, let me just say, justice and integrity and those kinds of substantive things to be his guide. We can't take that away from him. Now, let's go to the legislature. You'd find out that in fact, let me segue into the issue of the Constitution, like Prof was saying. There's a lot wrong with the 1999 Constitution as amended. But let us also talk a little bit about how politicians have used that as, as a muscle or as a baton, to keep, to do their thing, so to speak. Let us take the issue of the agitation in the Southeast. How can, in a nation like Nigeria, with all due respect, Prof, with all the intellectual elite we have in this country, how can it be that since the Biafra agitation started, not a single person, not even in the Southeast, has been able to say, And the worst one is that we have legislators from the region. You know, let's say Senator Baribe, for example. We have them in the region that have not been able to tell their constituents, there is nothing that can be done about giving you Biafra, because the Constitution does not allow it to be done in that way. What you should actually be agitating for is coming to us and telling us to bring it up in our houses, that you need the issue of Biafra, you know, that there should be some kind of legislation or something that would allow us run a referendum or do something. In other words, what I'm saying is that they should have been advising the constituents that there would have to be a constitutional amendment before Biafra can come into fruition, if ever. And until that is done, you can agitate all you want, unless you're asking. I kind of feel that some people think the president can stand up and make a fiat and say, from now on, I declare unto you that this part to this part is going to be Biafra land. That's never going to happen. And that's the truth. So all the lives being lost, sadly, are being lost in vain. The elite know it, especially the intellectual elite. But how come that in all this time, that has never been an issue?
Okay. Now, let's, on this note, veer to the southeastern part of the country.
Yeah.
Pockets of infrastructural development littered in the southeast zone, courtesy of the federal government's effort geared towards enhancing economic sustainability, job creation, youth engagements are no doubt achieving set goals. Enugu, Anambra, Ebonyi, Imo, and Abia states have brought testimonials of some of these projects worthy of note, which are in their various levels of completion, while some are already completed. Kelechi Ochiaga updates us.
The President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration since inception has embarked on massive rehabilitation of infrastructures across the country. Southeast geopolitical zone has felt the impact. Among the essential infrastructure development is the upgrading of 3-kilometer runway at Akanibiam International Airport, Enugu, rehabilitation of federal highways in the southeast, which include the 15-kilometer dual carriage 9th-mile deplorable section, Ogun-Lokbanta section with concrete median separators, the Enugu-Onisha Highway, the Enugu-Obola for Kogi Road, Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, among others.
This road was officially handed over to a new contractor for complete rehabilitation. And you can see them working at the moment. It is obvious that the complete rehabilitation will take some time.
Meanwhile, the second Niger Bridge is nearing completion with over 70% work done. The completion of the approach road from Onisha and Asaba is fast becoming a reality, as more than 61% has been done on the 11.9 kilometers total project length. The Onisha River Port, which is also nearing completion, has standard warehouse and the state-of-art equipment needed for lifting and movement of cargo from one point to another. Also, the Zix Mausoleum is one of the landmark achievements of the present administration.
What it takes for port to swing into full operation on the River Port has it. We have 2 gantry harbor cranes of 64 tons each. I think these are the 2 gantry harbor cranes. And then, amongst others, we have a mobile crane of 80 tons. That's the one right there. And we have a ridge stacker of 45 tons. And 2 forklifts of 32 and 50 tons, respectively.
Zik is a legacy. Zik is an idol. He is a colossus. Can hardly die. As long as Buhari longed to become president, and it was Buhari who eventually finished the construction of the mausoleum. Beautiful.
In Ebonyi State, the Federal Government Erosion Control Agency, Nigerian Erosion and Watershed Management Project (NEWMAP), is currently constructing about 19.3 kilometers drainage system as a major intervention in addressing flooding and erosion challenge in the state.
Activities was brought to a halt at that local government headquarters. So the NEWMAP came in, and as we speak, the remediation work has been completed at that site, and the threat to life and properties have been brought to a halt. The purpose of the stormwater management works that are going on in the capital city is to dewater Abakaliki. The support of the president has also facilitated a lot because, of course, there's a complete liaison from the federal.
The Area Power Project has been playing a revolutionary role in the growth of the economy in Abia State and environs, as the impact in the manufacturing and production sector cannot be overemphasized.
I have many machines in this shop, so the lights can carry the voltage of all these machines.
Before they install the light, we are suffering with Jane. You know how generator can disappoint you.
It's been saving our money since we started using it. And at least the light comes by 8 a.m. and goes by around 5:30 or so. So we've been enjoying it.
When all this come into full swing, the impact will definitely be effectively felt at the long run. In Enugu, Kelechi Ochiara, NTA News.
That was a report from Enugu Network Center telling Nigerians what is taking place in the southeastern part of the country, e.g. Enugu State, Anambra State, Ebonyi State, Imo, and Anambra State. Professor Mato, looking to the public domain, it looks as though the government in the last 6 years has been selective, and it looks as though some regions have been abandoned, neglected. But the report you just listened to gives us projects dotting the landscape of the entire southeastern part of the country. How do you react to this?
Thank you. You see, one of the major problems, like I keep saying, Nigeria faces today is the problem of an unsatisfied elite class. The elites are, basically being Nigeria's major problem, not the common people. And I think one of the issues that that we are facing as a people now is that between 60 to 75% of Nigeria's population actually falls below the age of 35, or maximally say below the age of 40. And we don't teach history in our schools as a foundation course. So we apparently do not know who we are because we don't know where we are coming from, where we are, and where we want to go to. And I think this, in my view, informs a great deal of the kind of agitations that we have across the country, especially in the southeastern region. It's said, it's there in political theory that nations hardly survive 2 civil wars, and those who are urging for agitation, especially from the southeast, and claiming marginalization, etc., despite the gargantuan quantum projects that we see going on in the region, is increasingly becoming alarming, especially if we view it against the backdrop of the fact that politics itself is patronage. Patronage in the sense that when you elect a person into an office, you are patronizing that person, and it's only reciprocal and expected that you are rewarded either by way of projects, provision, appointment, etc., to serve in this government. But if we look at the political capacity as far as contributions in the emergence of this government, of the southeastern part of the country, vis-a-vis the kind of projects that are going in that region, it obviously sends a lot of worries to Nigerians of other geopolitical zones who invested so much in the coming of this government, and yet do not seem to enjoy this kind of facilities that those who did not make any serious input in the coming of this government enjoying it. So I am saying that there's a lot of problem, especially with societies that have a lot of enlightened individuals. What we see happening in the southeast and skeletally in the southwestern part of this country is that we see some individuals who apparently are not the best in terms of education, information, etc., providing the leadership of this succession, this integration, etc., of the Nigerian people, and the elites that are supposed to be responsible, both intellectual, political, economic, apparently are silent. My colleague there in the studio is talking about perhaps the role that is being played by the minority leader in the Senate, in the Biafra agitation, and then, before that very hallowed chamber, in my view, is very, very uncalled for, and it's very, very unfortunate. And I think time will tell whether one is being, doing the right thing, or it's not. Following the very unfortunately wrong course. So I want to think that we need to wear thinking caps to understand properly the nature and context of the Nigerian society today. If anybody will ask for succession, it shouldn't be somebody from the southeastern part of this country, because every village, at least that I know in the northern part of this country, if you go, you'll find that a substantial portion of the commerce in that particular community is dominated by people from the southeastern part of the country. And so if anybody will ask for, separation, instability, etc., I want to believe that it shouldn't be somebody from the southeastern part of the country. And this is where leadership really have to come into play. Elites that are old enough, that are educated sufficiently, should be able to come up and tell their citizens or their peoples, where we are coming from, where we are, and where we need to go to. And if agitation is simply as a result of our desire to secure political control, and then you use threat, in my view, you are only deepening the perhaps the well that you are digging, because that certainly will not scare any section, I'm sure, of this country into surrendering political power, or even agreeing with you by any means, to take control of politics in the face of this very unfortunate, scare that seems to be coming. So I think Nigerians must understand the fact, like I did say, that our problem is how do we move away from a situation of backwardness to a state of progress. Our priority should be the evolution of leaders, as we do have today in substantial part of this country, who will damn whatever consequences and squarely face the issues and challenges that our respective states and the nation is facing at this critical threshold in our historical development. And I want to also use this opportunity to, again, I know the Minister of Education did say about 5-6 years ago when he came on board that history will be restored, teaching of history will be restored in our primary and secondary schools. But I do not think if this, has, taking effect now. We need to know who we are. We need to know where we are coming from. That is the only way we will be able to have an idea and chart a course on where we want to be, tomorrow. Unless we do that, we'll continue to fall in this crisis of, disagreement. We are not happy. We want to secede. If we want to take political control, we want to be president today. It's a matter of structure. Like Professor Nuhu Yakubu said, one of the major things that is facing the 1999 Constitution is the inability to really understand the concept of devolution of powers. It's not just about, electoral reforms. It's not just about, working on amendments as far as the judicial system is concerned, but it's about shedding the huge responsibilities that are attached to the exclusive responsibility list, leaving the state with only concurrent responsibilities. For instance, the federal government does not have any business running federal government colleges in Kaduna, in Katsina, in Kogi, in Bayelsa, etc., etc. I thought the Federal Ministry of Education should only be concerned with the issue of standard setting on one hand, and then the ability to also bring in quality control as far as the educational system in the federation is concerned, not building schools, not going into universities, etc., etc. So there are a lot of these things. In the ongoing constitutional review, we will talk about state police as a remedy to the obvious, security challenges that we are facing. Yes, we cannot approbate and reprobate at the same time. And this seems to be what's happening. In one breath, you say you want restructuring. And then you move there, you say you don't want states to even conduct local government elections. You want INEC to conduct local government elections. And then you move the next page and say, no, you want autonomy for local government councils, the third tier of government. So these are the kind of confusions that the nation actually faces in the hands of its elites. The fact is that if you are looking for restructuring, what you must do is to devolve powers from center to the other levels of government. And what that means in political theory is that by the time you reduce the functions of the federal government and empowers the state or local governments, it equally means, therefore, that the share of the national revenue that the central government will take will substantially be reduced and devolved to the state level. And I think that's what perhaps, the center seems to be jittery of. You say you want to have an Attorney General and Minister of Justice. It's becoming problematic. Problematic in the sense that Attorney General and Minister of Justice cannot be the same person, because a politician normally becomes Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Okay, and so it's the Attorney General that enters, nolle prosecution on any matter, especially criminal matters. And when matters relating to politics are there, it therefore becomes very, very problematic. You do it, the National Assembly has done it a couple of times, concurred by the state assemblies, but sitting Attorney Generals will always insist that it's not, but immediately they leave. Because I know, for instance, that it was done during the time of Goodluck Jonathan, and the president was denied access on the advice of his Attorney General, Mohamed Bello Adoki. And the same Mohamed Bello Adoki today in his book has clearly said that what needs to be done to the Nigerian judicial and legal system is to ensure that you separate the office of Attorney General of the Federation, Attorney General of the state, with that of the Commissioner for Justice. So restructuring is basically an attitude that must be confined within the redefinition of functions, roles, and responsibilities.
Quickly, before we take the next report, our signal just dropped there from Kaduna. We'll get back to Kaduna at the appropriate time. Before we take the next report, what really can be done to reshape the mindset reorientation, or reorientate the minds of the elite class in Nigeria? It looks as though each time an issue trumps up, the elite class will be fingered. Years back, attending the management trainings somewhere in Ilorin, Amti, it was said, you go to a community, very peaceful, development is good, but by the time Renaissance come, politics come, you find out that the community begins to be divided, and if you investigate, the elite class always involved. What really can we do? Because, for instance, Professor Nuyaku, for instance, serves as a VC, and maybe later is made a minister. Maybe by dint of maybe one or two reasons, he is dropped from that cabinet. He goes back home and tells people nothing is good about the system. Nothing is good about the system. But the same Professor Nuyaku will now say, if he's called back, you say everything is good about the system. So what can we do really to reshape the mindset of the elite class in Nigeria?
I think the Nigerian politics has to be defined the way it is. And what do I mean by this? We are playing politics of appeasement, politics of allocation, not politics of development. Let me give one example of this issue I'm saying, and I've said it in one or two of my, very important publications, that has been taken by international journals. You see, we have. Why do you have the issue of federal character commission in the Constitution? In principle, that principle was supposed to be a question of, solving the problem of the marginalized. But what has happened in terms of, implementing? What you have is simply politics of, geographical allocation of projects. Or the Constitution says every state must be represented in the federal government. And therefore, the government, I remember, for instance, when Buhari came in 2015, he said, I'm constrained to allow every state to have a minister. Otherwise, in terms of the frugality of governance, it's not required. All you need to do is to identify people who are competent, or even people who are familiar with you, that can do the work. Bring them in. Remember, when President Kennedy was president of the US, his brother was the Attorney General. Nobody can. Well, I wouldn't. I was also very young then, but I'm reading from history. I didn't know what was the reaction of the American people. But I thought it was, accepted in the sense that, the appointment passed through, Senate, acquiescence. Senate accepted that he should be allowed to be the Attorney General of the U.S. And that's why he was given the job. And he did it, to the satisfaction of the American people. Why is it not possible for presidents, governors, to identify people who are competent to help him run administration? But the Constitution says every local government must be represented in the government of a state. Every state must be represented in the government of the federation. And therefore, it becomes the politics of allocation. And that's why we are having, at least generally, will be the ones that will be competing for these positions. Not the ordinary people. We are quite correct when you said, one of us said, the problem is not with the ordinary people in this country, but it's the problem of elite competition and elite interest. So I am thinking that if you are talking about addressing the mindset of Nigerians, we still
the elites.
Of the elites, sorry, yes, of the elites. We simply have to redefine our politics, not in terms of allocation to a particular geography or area, but that let us be able to develop institutional mechanism to bring in the best in us. I can't accept that all Nigerians are bad, just as I don't say that all Nigerians are good. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that we have good Nigerians. And it happened during the First Republic. I keep on looking back to at history and finding out how did we get it wrong? Is it because the military came and interfered in our political process? And to the extent that in the military there was no standard. Any loyal officer would be given a lucrative job, and so on and so forth. But when you talk about democracy, we are thinking in terms of, there is a party that comes out with a program, and this program appeals to the people, and on the basis of that, appeal, they are selected to come and run the government for a period of time. Okay. If we do not, therefore define politics in this manner, what we continue to have is a situation where somebody is looking for, who can represent me from this particular state. This is a person, regardless of the person's, moral standing, educational attainment, competence in carrying out the responsibilities. So we really have, a very dicey situation, and I believe that, as people are worried or bothered about, a constitutional amendment, we begin to also think, what institutional mechanism can we put in place to help us select the best? I think this country to move forward, we need the best, not mediocres. We have so many mediocres around, even at the federal level, even in this, throughout the states. Yet, we end up having a situation whereby we keep on recycling, people that, are misfits. Deadwoods, as a multilateral regime will call it. Okay. Deadwoods that will not perform. Okay. So we really need to redefine our politics to such an extent that we are looking for merit, we are looking for values that will unite us, we are looking for such good indices of governance that will enable this country to move from this abject position we are in. Talk about corruption. Transparency International is saying we are very low in the rung of, the rung of the ladder in terms of, countries that are less corrupt. Talk about, poverty. Nigeria is considered to be the poverty capital of the world now. These are issues that, we should actually look for ideas, regardless of, where it is coming from. They are coming from, the ideas are coming from. Let them come even from a mad person or a lunatic intellectual who says, no, this is the way we have to do this thing. I was listening to the Minister of Digital Economy one time, and he said, what we need to do to the economy of Nigeria is destructive development. And destructive development, are there not contradictions in terms? But he can explain it. He said, if technology has not, the technological attainments we are having now, if they do not dismantle what was existing before, we cannot move.
Okay,
this is what
let me hold it there. Susan, it looks as though when Mr. President came in 2015 and later now from 2019, some felt he was so much in a hurry, but he realized being a civilian president, his hands are tied.
Absolutely.
Unlike the military ruler who say, I want this, it happens. But as a civilian president, he's tied to the constitution. He's tied to extant laws that must follow procedure before things can happen. The issue of anti-corruption, the issue of looted and relooted funds and what have you. Some are feeling that nothing has been achieved in the last 6 years. Some feel a lot has been achieved. Some feel a lot would have been achieved if ABCD was not there to stop Mr. President from moving forward.
Right.
What's your assessment?
Well, let me, before I go on to that, let me just piggyback to what Professor here said about, gosh, having a senior moment.
What? Destructive development?
The issue of federal capital is federal character.
Well, let me go on, and then maybe I'll come back to that. But now here's the thing. We have so much, quite sadly, you know, sometimes we try to solve a problem and we forget that it's really foundational. And in order for a problem to be solved, you have to tackle it from the foundation. Unfortunately for this nation, we have had multiple decades of very poor education, you know. The same elite have moved their education to a private enterprise. Yeah. And children have been left, over the years, several decades, have been left with very little education, if at all, you know. And until we can solve that problem, a lot of other ones are predicated upon poor education, you know. Let's take, for example, the issue of understanding anything pretty much in the public domain, you know. I am on the social media a lot, and the one thing that I've come off of there with is the fact that this country has, a lot of its people have a great problem with comprehension. It is one thing to read and another thing to comprehend, you know, and that's a fundamental problem. You know, I don't know if I'm segueing too much away from, you know, the issue you raised, but the problems are, I don't know how to put it. I wish I was as optimistic, actually, about this whole situation as I am with other things, which, like I said, are transient. There's nothing transient about poor education in the nation. You know, it has to take a barrage of, you know, solutions, you know, from all angles to resolve in order for us to be able to move forward or to be where we are. You know, I think I've kind of lost my train of thought. That seems to happen once in a while, but please.
Looted funds?
Looted funds. Now, on that issue,
yes.
Looted funds and anti-corruption. Now, now I recall. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. I recall what about Prof said I wanted to, you know, make very clear. The issue of Nigeria being the poverty capital of the world. I'm sad to tell you, Prof, but that was a 2012 statistic.
No, it's still current.
No, it's not.
It's current. India,
just go ahead.
Okay.
India has moved out of India used to be.
Irrespective of India, that's a 2012. So yeah, you know. And then, as far as anti-corruption is concerned in this country, a lot of times when people say nothing has been done, we shouldn't really ever be in a space of 0 or 100, because it's very deceptive. You know, we should try as much as possible, like I say repeatedly. You know, like I say repeatedly, we have to try and just make sure that in our stage of whether it's plenty or whether it's loss or whether it's successes or failures, to just keep it real so that we understand where we are. Because if we don't, we'll be blown here and there, the reality would be here and the rhetoric would be here and everybody would be confused. Recently, okay, let's take where we are on the anti-corruption grid. We, and some of us out there, have had our kind of, resistance in accepting, especially the last report about where Nigeria stands. A lot has been done in terms of anti-corruption, and those exist as a matter of fact. So when Transparency International comes up and says, you've actually moved 2 steps down, or you've only moved 2 steps forward, we have kind of had our doubts about the authenticity of that assessment. And here's why. Let us take stealing, for example. It is not that it hasn't happened in this administration, but it is that wherever it has happened, the culprits have been called out. They've been removed from their positions of employment and called out. That never really happened 16 years preceding us. It was after the fact we're now hearing, including Dezani, of 15 billion naira in jewelry of our money, of $80 million in property, and that's not, we're not even at the end of that yet. We've seen all the finances coming in from Delta State's coffers that was, when they where it was denied. But coming back to the fact, immense progress had, and I categorically say that, immense progress has been made in anti-corruption. There's been less stealing. There's been, and you can also tell by when projects are designated and monies are earmarked and released, those projects get done. Those are the kind of factual things you can put together, the cumulative conclusion being that, yes, we're not having enough leakages in theft and in practices that used to happen in the past, So, like I said, the anti-corruption last report, we've had, I'm not going to make any accusations, but we've had reasons to believe that there was some interference or influence somehow for us, for Nigeria, to be where it was on that report. Yes, indeed. Yes, as a matter of fact, because when you put all what is going on, with the TSA and all of that, and with the fact, like I said, because thefts usually always come from projects that were not completed, people siphoning away money. As you know, even recently, the NPA DG was removed. So when you put all those together and then you get a report, saying you have not moved down on the anti-corruption, there's reason, there's reason to kind of like doubt those reports. And that's the truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before let me allow Professor Matu just put in a word on this. Professor Matu, I know it's an interactive session listening to Professor Nui Yakub, Susan Henshaw, in the area of reshaping the orientation of the elites, the issue of anti-corruption and the looted funds. Let's hear your thoughts.
Susan has said, quite a lot about, the war against corruption. We are coming from a tradition where corruption was celebrated to a situation where, once you are accused of corruption, one of the most important things that I think we need to really bear in mind is that it's not enough for anybody to just come up, and accuse a public officer of corrupt practices, and you expect that action is, swiftly taken in that direction. This is one of the vestiges of Western liberal democracy, the right of individuals to throw out anything that they desire against, especially public individuals. And what's very clear here is that it also has a history. It has a history of suspicion between the citizens and those who represent them, at various levels of government. And like I said, we are coming from a scenario where the corrupt you are, the more corrupt you are, the more recognized you are. Corruption has already taken a very large space within our individual, and group cultural activities in Nigeria. If you are corrupt, you amass, ill wealth, ill-gotten wealth, and you are recognized by your community. They, confer on you chieftaincy titles, etc., etc. If you are honest, you are decent public worker, and you don't, dip your hands into public till, members of your community or even perhaps members of your immediate and extended family get back at you and say you're a poor man. So corruption, in fact, has become an integral part of our cultural characteristics and activities in this country, to the extent that the line has become so blurred, decency, honesty on one hand, and corruption on the other hand. The line completely disappeared. And so fighting this situation, therefore, takes quite a long time and a lot of efforts on the part of government. And corruption is a very powerful, instrument. As you fight corruption, corruption is also fighting back. People who have amassed wealth illegally at the pleasure of deploying tremendous quantum of these resources in fighting, those who would like to, stop that. Susan made mention of the managing director of Ports Authority, and I had the privilege of discussing with one of the very senior officers, in that particular organization, and he was saying that the kind of reforms, innovations, and changes that have been introduced in Port Authority by way of, can you imagine? Particular business conglomerate or group will, have access to, securing millions of dollars on a daily basis, and then somebody just coming in the morning and say, look, don't do that. Stop it, or we've taken away these concessions that you people are enjoying. So corruption, I am saying, is a very powerful instrument. It has become so severely institutionalized within our very social, political, and economic fabrics as a nation. And therefore, fighting it becomes a huge and gigantic effort. And that is precisely why that the efforts of this government is putting into place. Just like Susan said, it's not to say completely that this, local thieveries and what have you that you see in official quarters are not happening. But they are no longer celebrated. Let us remember, like I said, that at a point in time in our history as a nation, not too distant past, corruption was celebrated. Your level of profile in the society was directly proportional to how much you were able to siphon from public treasury to your private estate. So I see that corruption is being fought. Yes, there are a lot of issues, but I'm very hopeful that with persistence and insistence on the part of a responsible state like we do have now, the matter will be addressed. After all, the late Professor Sam Aluko will always tell you that even in corruption, you have what you call benevolent corruption. People who take from the public tilt and invest, within the geopolitical space of either their region or the country, at least is a better form of corruption that, the kind of corruption that we have in this country where you take from the public tilt and stash it away. And when that became impossible, we take away from public tilt and then we go and build tanks as if we are storing water, or we put it, top of the ceilings in our homes and so on and so forth. So I do agree very sincerely that a lot of wars are being waged on, corruption in this country. And of course, it's an ongoing process. It's difficult for you to completely eliminate it, but at least we're getting to a level where there is a clear definition between reward and sanction. If you are caught, this activity, this is the punishment, and of course the reward system should also be intensified in the sense that if you do well, you are equally, rewarded in the society. So I think we are doing very well. Like I keep saying, we need to really, appreciate the realities that we find ourselves in, and then make, deliberate efforts in order to be able to move the country, out of the predicaments that we have, found ourselves in after a very long period of time. And I don't blame Nigerians. I don't blame Nigerians because over a long period of time, we have suffered from, political governance degeneration. We have been so massively battered, by our respective ruling classes. And so when what you have therefore is dejection, you have suspicion. Whatever anybody in position of authority tells you, you treat it, with a pinch of, caution, believing that, it is we versus them. So, and we really, really need to, change our attitude so that we can arrive at the promised land faster than, of course, we will expect.
Thank you so much, Professor Kabiru Matu. At this point, I want to say thank you so much for making time to be on this program, Democracy on the Move, the Second Wind. Professor Kabiru Matu, it was nice having you on the program. Well, I just hope if corruption was good, I would have settled for benevolent corruption, because I dip my hands in the loot and I settle within the region. And the other one is quite destructive. Well, quickly, we have done southeast. Let's go to the south region of Nigeria. The first link between the oil-rich Bonny Island and the rest of Rivers State, a project of the federal government, is expected to open up the area for oil and gas exploration in addition to tourism when completed. At present, the project is at 37% stage of completion. Robinson reports on these and other projects in the Niger Delta region.
After several years of unsuccessful attempts, the Bodo Bonny Road, a project dear to Rivers people, costing about 120 billion naira, started in 2017 with the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas (NLNG) funding the project under tax rebate arrangement with the federal government. The 40-kilometer project covers 3 local government areas with 13 bridges, including a 204-meter-long pipeline crossing bridge. In spite of the construction challenge owing to the terrain, the project has achieved 37% progress, with the first 5 kilometers of the road from Bodo Aziz completed with culvert and already being used by the public. 4 bridges are also completed. 7 others are different levels of construction, while 2 others are yet to start.
The way they do the road, I like it. Yeah, me. I like the development they want to bring it for Organi here. I like it.
The road is very good. As we used to use it, we apply it very well without any gallop. The road is very, very, very fantastic. So every other transporter that uses can also confirm it.
The road is so short that from here to Bonny will take less than 30 minutes. If there is going to be a delay, it will not exceed early 2023 before the project will be completed.
Another project of the federal government is the ongoing Organi land cleanup, which has recorded appreciable progress, with 26 lots remediated out of the 57 awarded in 2019 and 2020. 6 water reticulation projects have also been awarded to provide clean water across 4 local government areas.
I would say the project, which is on track, but it's very slow and needs to be sped up.
HYPREP must be an independent agency so the HYPREP can function properly, because how many years are they going to stay in Organi before they move to other parts of the Niger Delta state?
Similarly, 400 women are undergoing training in agro-allied skills under HYPREP livelihood program. However, issues of repollution remain a challenge.
The minister, at the time he launched the water project, also launched the needs assessment for livelihood. That's we want to mop up the youths who are directly or indirectly involved in artisanal refining activities, because engaging in artisanal refining activities, there is terrible health hazard that the lifespan of these young men may be reduced by half. But if we tell them that we have an alternative source of livelihood that you can engage in, we can train you to acquire skills that put food on the table, we hope that they will accept.
From Calabar, Maureen Ajom reports that the federal government's policy of revamping the eastern ports, particularly the Calabar Deep Sea Port, is witnessing a revival of economic activities, with concessionaires allowing a free for shipload of petrol and other non-oil products from Calabar Port to the United States, the first time since 1990. A major challenge is the non-dredging of the depth of the channels, which stakeholders say should be expedited.
I want to call on the federal government, please let the dredging of Calabar Port be expedited. Let whatever legal issues please be settled.
The president has already allocated money. Has he done anything wrong by calling you people to go and do it? The president has done his best. He's not going to supervise it. There are supervisors, there are people who are supposed to implement whatever the government has taken. Let those people who have collected the money go and do the job.
The rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery is ongoing with the approval of $1.5 billion for the first phase by the government. Technical work has started at the old refinery, which is the first phase of the project expected to last for 24 months. Managing Director of the refinery, Ahmed Diko, said about 3,000 skilled and unskilled workforce will be required at the peak of the project.
Once this project is done, we have a new strategy of a model that we hope to use to operate these facilities, which is the O&M model, where it's not only an NPC alone that will run this facility. All this is done with the view to make sure that we run it profitably and sustainably so that we can guarantee production and then guarantee products availability as is designed from the refinery.
When completed, the refinery is expected to operate its full production capacity of 6,000 barrels of crude per day. In Port Harcourt, Robinson Derateide, NTA News.
Of particular note on that report is just to amplify that by the records, in December 2017, Calabar Port commenced export of bulk cement to Tema in Port Harcourt in Ghana. In 2019, 3 container ships betted at Calabar Port for the first time in 11 years. Before we look critically at the South-South, one of the stakeholders in that report said the president has done his best. If he says, let this project go, we now look at the supervision and implementation. Institutions are in place, ministries, departments, and agencies are in place, backed up by law on deliverables. Most often, government's intentions are good, but those saddled with the responsibility to deliver, to drive it to fruition, to drive it to actualization, remain a problem. How can we surmount this, Prof?
Well, I mean, there are regulations for dealing with public officers who are not putting in their best. And one would expect that such regulations should be brought into being, if that is the case. Because I don't actually see the possibility. I mean, the gentleman who spoke actually said it's not possible for Buhari to be everywhere. That's a fact. It's not possible. But there are aides, assistants, people who are supposed to carry out these responsibilities. And I'm saying, therefore, that regulations are already in place, excellent regulations are in place to discipline. Because, the problem we're having in this country is that there are people who deliberately come out to sabotage government, programs or projects. And they are left. And they do this on very flimsy grounds. For instance, or somebody, wanted to be given certain favors, either in terms of, not even favors. Maybe they are due for promotion, and the promotion exercise has not taken place. That begins to actually affect their psychology to how to handle, government activities. So I believe that the way to get at problems of delay in execution or sabotage of in the execution of the projects, or even deliberate sabotage one way or the other, must be handled by extant regulations on discipline. The person who is on the ground in the southeast or whatever, anywhere in the country, that is supposed to look after or monitor these projects, are the ones that will be held accountable. And the regulation should be implemented regardless of whose horse we got. Okay. This is my position, because you just discovered that in this country there are people who believe that they are thing gods also. They cannot be touched. They are untouchable elements. And nobody, because if you come to the to take responsibility, as a public servant, you have to perform. And the lack of performance is actually what is affecting the deliverables that we're talking about. And then, these deliverables are actually meant for human beings, all of us. We don't get the benefit of it. And then somebody who believes that he's a thing god, and everybody think, is untouchable, will actually be left there. So this creates this mindset that government is not serious. And I think this is what government should try to avoid.
Okay, let me take your angle.
Well, I think that, just like Prof has said, the one thing that I can say, regarding this government is that we need more oversight. Oversight is the one thing that I see that improvements, honestly, just have to be there. I believe that the last 2 years, if the government clamps down on people who are not doing what they're supposed to do at the airports, at our seaports, at our federal civil service and, MDAs, I can almost certainly say that we'd see an improvement in the efficiency of government way more than 50%. So oversight, And I say to myself, what would it take, for example, like my kids were returning back to United States and there's still all this little asking for little things here and there. One lady actually opened her little wallet to see that whether she had cash in it before now asking for cash. And so for those kind of little things, it doesn't take money. It just takes the will of whatever, whoever is in charge of that, department or whatever, to set up a sting. It takes nothing to send a passenger, a pretend passenger through, and have cameras cover and get people fired in real time. And you see the difference it would make. Because the one thing I love about Nigeria is that, as you want to call it corrupt or whatever as we can be, we're not innately so. And we're very malleable. In other words, when somebody wields a big stick, we get in line. But it doesn't seem to me like there's much of that happening. People are getting away with all sorts of, crime and all sorts of sharp practices, And like Prof said, when the gentleman in Calabar said, if the president can be everywhere, but unfortunately, every time, let's say, there's a piece of paper lying where it's not supposed to lie in Calabar, they'll be like, Buhari, President Buhari cannot see that this place is dirty. But that's not how it's supposed to work. There are people, that's why it's called, what do you call it now? There's the supervisors. Yes, exactly. Running all the way down. But nobody is holding all those people under him accountable. And that needs to happen. That needs to happen.
Okay,
yeah.
That leads me to the issue of institutions. A lot happened before the eventual swearing in of President Joe Biden to office. If institutions in the United States were not firm and strong,
that's right.
You can imagine what it would have been. Yeah. Now, if the president approves, we expect that a particular agency saddled with that responsibility by law is supposed to follow up to ensure deliverables. Yeah. And now it doesn't happen. And some person walk away and nothing happens. Yeah. So, institutions and deliverables in the public domain.
They are quite integral. And you can't do anything without them. I think Obama said it all when he came to Ghana, when he was in power, and said the problem in Africa is the absence of strong institutions, but at the same time, the presence of strong men. So the contradiction between those two variables are the things that are afflicting, many countries, especially in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria. So when we need to actually ensure that there are institutions that are strong enough to resist the manipulative tendencies of leaders. If we don't have, we will try to take, we might be able to take 2 giant steps, and then we'll reverse it by taking, 3, very, unproductive steps. And this is where the contradiction we really need to address in our state, or in this country. Let us, ensure and I also believe that the way government functions, is something that is much to be desired. And I give example from my own. When I was, before I retired recently, there was the prolonged strike of ASU. And government knew that at a point in time, this matter will have to be resolved. Why did it drag for almost 1 year? This is the question I keep on asking. And in the process, we know the damage that has been done to education. Students could not go to. In fact, a lot of universities now have, it's either they combine, various, 2 levels, in order to enable, them to continue with the program, especially for those who suffered as a result of the prolonged strike. Right. Or they cancel the session, and students are now made to spend extra year before they could graduate. So I am saying that, if we have a Minister of Labor, we have a Minister of Labor, the academic staff are on strike. What stops the Minister of Labor to invite these people? Is it the pride that, oh, this is government and these are unions, and therefore government could not, come down from its Olympian height to come and relate with people who probably are regarded as, just nuisance elements. I believe that since there is, if I take that as an example of what government needs to do in order to ensure that, things actually move properly. You have an institution called Ministry of Labor. You have a Minister of Labor. The minister should actually take the initiative immediately. There is, a signpost or even, news flash that there will be strike. We allow so many things to drag on in this country so long that we do not know what incalculable damage we are doing to public service. So my take over this issue is that let us try to enhance the institutions we have and make them, look to be operating efficiently. We can do it. You can do it. It's mindset again we have. Oh, somebody is, I'm a minister, I cannot come to the level of the unions. That's rubbish. Now let us try to tell one another the truth of this, of what is the ailment affecting this country. We need to be very decisive. So many things have to be done at the right time in order to, meet expectations. This is what is actually wrong with this country. We are not bad people as such. We are not, a society that is already condemned to failure. Right. No. It's just that, there are people who are in positions of authority that do not even know the enormity of the responsibilities that are on their shoulders. So these are things that we'll really have to address, from time if you really need to move ahead. And I believe also, as I think, Madam, put the matter very squarely. If somebody, has done something wrong and he is not punished immediately, then it is assumed to be the order of the day. Right. And the next person will say, well, this man did it last time, he got scot-free. Why can't I do it? Am I not a human being? Does he have 2 heads and I have 1? And so on and so forth. So good examples have to be provided from time to time from leadership. And when it is done, people who are following will take a cue. So in relation to the point about the US, everybody knew, what needed to be done. For instance, if it was Nigeria that somebody, was opposed to the result of an election, probably many people would have been killed. But Trump went to various courts, and various courts also said, based on evidence, there was nothing like manipulation of the votes. Yeah. And as he was still, even up to today, he's still agitating that he has been robbed of the presidency. But when he was going from one court to another, the people who are also preparing for the swearing of the incoming government continue with their own process. And in the end, you see that there was a very peaceful transition from one regime to another. But in Nigeria, because we allow things to sediment, at the end of the day, we get the raw side of the stick.
Okay, we'll go to look at the specifics in terms of the litany of projects we saw from the south part of Nigeria. Yeah. But after this report, looking at the journey so far by the Buhari administration's wide-ranging programs and policies continue to change the social and economic fortunes of northwestern part of geopolitical zone of the country, infrastructural and agricultural development taking center stage. Haruna Mohammed puts this report together from Kaduna Network Center.
More than 90% of the population in the region are farmers. It is the mainstay of the economy, and there are projects to show in rice revolution and loan access, as well as inputs which have enhanced food security and stopped importation.
We have almost tripled all the produce that we produce in the state. Our yield for rice today has moved from 2.5 tons per hectare to 5 tons per hectare, with some clusters doing up to 8 tons per hectare.
Last 2-3 years, Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari is the one who awarded this contract for the development of agriculture, and he has commissioned this project by himself in our local government area, aimed to improve the agricultural development for the state.
Consequently, infrastructure to promote this sector in roads, water and rail transportation are already making impact.
Revamping or revitalizing the railway line will certainly lead to a lot of savings in terms of money being wasted in rehabilitating roads. There are many things that if transported through the railway line, there may not be any damage to our roads. All these heavy materials, heavy equipment can be moved through the railway line.
Looking at the larger picture, government actualization of high-value infrastructure such as Abuja-Kaduna-Kano, Kano-Maiduguri, and Kano-Katsina dual carriageway are not only promoting safer linkage, but are providing viable platform for economic ventures.
Government decided to pick a very competent contractor. If you look at the road now, the areas have been completed. It is fantastic, and the concept for this road is different. Sometimes one of the challenges we have over accidents because people think the road has been expanded. It's not so. It's the quality of work such that even what we call the shoulder, it has been constructed with the same material as the main carriageway. That way, we are to ensure that the road does not start deteriorating.
We have to thank federal government during this administration, because if you can recall, former government, almost all the contractors abandoned site because no payment. But when this administration came, in the past 6 months, they settled all the debt. Almost 60% of the debt, they settled it, and the contractors were asked to go back to site.
In terms of physical delivery of the job, the new additional carriageway has been completed from Chenet 0 to the Katsina State border, that is 74 kilometers, 100% has been completed. And now the contractor is concentrating on completing in reconstructing the existing carriageway.
Between the seaport and this facility is the rail line, as you have seen it. Whatever is produced here is put on the rail bed after custom has done appropriate processing and sealing with their seal. It gets to the port, and upon arriving at the port with custom escort, it is simply put on the ship. It goes to the quay and then it's loaded on the ship and goes. There is no other process that is done in the seaports, in Lagos or Port Harcourt or wherever it goes to in the Nigerian seaport.
It will enhance economic activities of the state, and where people will, not even in the town, even the village, those farmers that are into ginger, SSS seeds, they will create more job for the people in the village because they will have a place to bring their product for export from here to abroad. And even we are ready to give a consultancy services to most of the exporters.
Importantly, the new focus of the Buhari administration is providing linkage that will promote West Africa interconnectivity, give rise to a new rail project, the Kano-Katsina-Maradi rail project.
The rail lines, this heavy goods will be taken, our roads will be saved, money that is being spent annually on construction and maintenance of this road will be minimized, and that money can be channeled to other sectors that will benefit Nigerians. The rate of accident will also reduce because the roads are now good.
The multi-billion-naira Ajakuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline, popularly known as AKK, is another project undertaken by the present administration to revive the moribund industries in the region.
It's an opportunity for urea fertilizer to be produced from basic raw materials here in the north. Besides that, we can produce methanol. Methanol is an export commodity. The largest methanol producer in the world is Qatar. They are the largest because they have large gas fields. And now they are leading the world in the production of methanol, because methanol is a feedstock for the production of other chemicals and petrochemicals. We can also go ahead to produce other fuels that can be utilized or other raw materials for other industries to feed.
The region is on the course of progress in the education sector with the establishment of tertiary institutions, one of them, University of Transportation Daura, an improved enrollment figure on account of homegrown feeding program.
A lot of success stories. So many of these beneficiaries have been investing in so many businesses. Some of them have their own rice mill.
It is a current development, not only in Daura, not only Katsina, not only Nigeria, but the whole Africa.
The issue of securing lives and property by addressing the challenges of banditry, kidnapping, cattle rustling are being addressed through constructive engagement of stakeholders. In Kaduna, Haruna Mohammed, NTA News.
That was a report there of litany of projects in the northwestern part of the country, and earlier on we took on south region of Nigeria. It looks as though 6 years down the line, that's why we tag this program Democracy on the Move, the second wave, the second wind. I mean, projects were not concentrated in one direction of the country, but pictures don't tell lies. We have gone to southeast, we have done south, and now northwestern part of the country. Spread of projects that touches the lives of the people. We have seen the AKK, we have seen that AKK already, the constituents of Prof, which is Kogi State, is fully captured in it. Spread of projects in the last 6 years. What's your assessment, Susan?
I think, like I said, infrastructure has been policy-wise and, project-wise, has been this government's very strong point, in the Northeast, for example. And I just kind of like to segue. There's been so much going on in the Northeast. Thank goodness to the governor. Over there, but there's been so much going on that it's almost I don't know, the word escapes me, but if we claim that the Northeast is unlivable due to insecurity, how come there's so many successful projects going on there? Federal government projects, like you mentioned, the AKK is heading there. It's heading over there.
It's in progress.
It's in progress, but it's headed there. Pipes are being laid. There's absolutely nothing in the Northeast that is telling us, like I said, keeping it real, that insecurity is so grave, or insecurity has not been managed, or it's not been managed, actually, So projects by the federal government in the Northeast moving on schedule. Even state government projects, like I said, moving on schedule. We haven't heard anything from the state governor, and he's quite good, you know, at telling us what's going on there. He keeps it real. That's why I love to listen to the man. You know, if it's bad, he says it's bad. If it's good, he says it's good, you know. And we haven't heard from him in a while, which gives me a very positive feeling, you know, about the Northeast and the projects going on there, you know, yeah.
Prof, the other aspect is the interesting part of most of the projects in the last 6 years, though some persons, maybe in their own selfish direction, will say they were not initiated by this administration. But what is government? Governance is a continuum. Okay. And these projects are meant for Nigerians. These projects are meant to stay in Nigeria. Continuity in governance and a government that comes and discontinues where the previous administration started. Which is better? Continuity in governance, carry on with projects, and not abandoning them. We would have had a litany of abandoned projects if this did not happen. So from the perspective of sustaining where the other government stopped, or abandoning and starting new ones that you may not continue with, what do you make of it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bad heritage that we had, you know, for some time, particularly when you take it from the point of view, I mean, from the point of military intervention. They came in, or even if the first military regime under Organi did not, you know, openly or blatantly, you know, stop projects that were ongoing. But we had this when military dictatorship stabilized. A governor will be appointed today by his commander-in-chief, and he will go to the state and begin to say, you know, everything rubbish. What my predecessor did was rubbish, you know, and then they will have to be put aside. Then they will start. So already you have abandoned projects. He will start his own, and he will not even know how long he will be staying in power. And the moment he is also, you know, shuffled out, you know, another person comes and say, oh, you know what his predecessor was doing. I mean, it was, you know, a recurring decimal. But I'm quite happy. This one area where I will actually also commend the present regime of Muhammadu Buhari, in the sense that quite a number of projects that were either, you know, at gestation period, or they had even been embarked upon. He has tried not to deviate from what is already ongoing or what is about to take off to complete. And that's why, you know, the Warrior-Itapevi rail line, you know, was completed. That's why Kaduna, you know, Abuja-Kaduna rail line was completed. And that's how, you know, the now soon to be commissioned, you know, Lagos-Ibadan, you know, rail line is going to be, you know, is being handled. And also the Niger bridge. But my concern really now is that there are still other potentially important projects that we need to address our minds. So one is the iron and steel that I mentioned earlier. We cannot, you know, be an industrial entity without a steel industry.
Well, Prof, at this point, I must say thank you so much, Professor New Yakub, former Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja, and Susan Henshaw, attorney, social, political advocate. We have to discontinue this program for now. That is the Democracy on the Move, the second wind, to join Gombe for a live coverage of the 2 years anniversary of Governor Yahya Inwa's administration. The event here is taking place at Pantami International Stadium, Gombe. Stay with us.